Well, how about that start? I forgot to add myself to stream. Welcome to the show. I don't think I've ever forgot to do that before. I think I was busy. We got two negative in the chat, and he was making me do puns off his name. I was doing be positive and some blood type jokes. So, welcome to the show. I'm Max. This is RHMax channel. I'm extra excited today. I was actually pretty drained earlier, but then I started talking to Alex backstage. And he got me pumped up. So I'm pumped up again. I'm good. Emotions are fluctuating, but they're pretty positive and very high right now. So I always appreciate that. This is going to be a good show. I know I say that half the time, at least. I try not to get your hopes up, and I don't think it's going to be a good show, but I have a feeling it's going to be a good show today. So share the link on the Twitters, on the Telegrams, on the YouTubes, on the Facebook. Share the link. Surge, what's up? Number one friendly troll. Appreciate you coming, Serge. Crypto Contrary, nice to see you again. It's been a while. You changed your picture though. I don't see the colorful RH suit on there. Second interview in a day. I know, Alex. So I'm hoping he went to sleep for like the last 6-7 hours, and he's just like, what happened? Nothing. Everything's good. Everything's fine. Who we have? Godfather J6, a regular. Appreciate you, man. You show up lots of times. We appreciate the regulars here on the RHMax channel for sure. Kaj is in the house. We got HEX Contractor. We got, again, 2 negative. I like the name. So many puns. Satan's Angel. Well, at least you're an angel, sir. I like angels. Angels are good. Serge, we're going to get to your questions, sir. We're going to get to your questions. Yeah, today's going to be good. Other news too, I'm doing a rebranding of a little bit. Nothing really is changing of the name or nothing like that. Just I got proof of beard 1. Yes, it's his Twitter, at least at proof of beard 1, aka Markable. Great guy. He's been doing the memes too on the show. He did the one for Alex, which had me as Captain America with the Picasso painting. I don't even say Picasso style painting. I just say Picasso style, but I forget who drew that. Martin Van something on Twitter. It's awesome. He's been drawing all kinds of YouTubers and streamers and stuff in the community. Anyways, that's where the meme came from. He did it, and he's also doing a new intro. A lot of the stuff when I first started, I did it myself, and I'm not the creative type in that area. I don't do like digital media as much, although I've got very good at thumbnails, unfortunately, for better or for worse. If I do say so myself. I spend like a very minimal time on it, but yeah, some of them are pretty good actually. But he's doing a new intro, outro, doing some new art, maybe new logos, stuff like that. So that should be fun. That's coming up. Maybe he'll finish in a couple weeks or so, maybe 2 more weeks, maybe 2 more months. We'll have to see, won't we? Yeah, I think that's as far as news goes. Let's get into it with Alex. Let's bring him in. Welcome to the show, Alex.
Hey, how's it going?
When I say Alex these days, used to I'd say Alex, and I have to say Alex from Hedron or Alex McWhirter, or I'd say something else because Alex, it's a common name overall. But now I just say Alex, and people know who I'm talking about. So that's you've transcended. In that way.
I guess that's a good thing, right?
Yes. You're not known for anything bad, as far as I know. We'll get into that too. I want to get over the criticisms of the Hedron ecosystem and stuff like that too. We'll get into it later, but that's something that I like to dig into because it's always good to have data for data, right? So people bring questions, they bring concerns. You're like, no, actually this way, or actually it's a fair point, but here's the trade-offs. That's what I like to get into on the show too. But we'll get in that in a bit. I've heard your intro a couple times, I think, and I actually picked something out of I want to talk to you about afterwards. But for people who haven't, you can give us something different in it too. I imagine you do the intro so many times, you're like, you know what, I'm going to save this for another one, or you just accidentally do it. I don't know. But how'd you come up with your name? How'd you get into crypto? Just briefly. I know you've said 100 times. I won't take you through it, make it so onerous as it may always be. But how'd you find Richard Hart? All that good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think I found Richard like we all did, right? I was in crypto at the time. I just kind of like was at that point I was kind of investing in whatever. Like there was no real like thought into what I was doing. It was just like, well, these things randomly go up, so I'm just gonna like pick some random ones and see what happens.
Yeah. And what year was that? Because I know I started trading and stuff 2017, 2016. What year?
Yeah, it's got like in the same area of time roughly.
Okay. So I know the
So-
shitcoins you're talking about then. Okay.
Yeah, we're on the same page.
Yeah.
So, I was investing in random things. It was seeing how a lot of that goes, kind of learning the whole, like, at that point, like, the big, like, scam thing was ICOs, right? Like, that was the whole thing you got into and then probably didn't get out of.
Yeah.
So plenty of those, and I was
I
just
think they're called SAC phases now, actually. SAC phases.
is that what we call them now? Hopefully that doesn't
Rebrand.
spread too far. I like it staying in our community, but you never know.
Yeah.
But the I think the thing that, like, I was looking in Bitcoin at that time, because this was a point where I was starting to get into Bitcoin mining, and Ethereum mining, which later I decided was just a stupid idea. But and I think through just looking into Bitcoin more and more is where I found Richard Hart's video talking about tops and bottoms. And this is around the time, he was calling, I want to say it was when he was calling the 20K top, or saying, like, it was before then, but it was when he was, like, really anti-Ethereum, really hard into Bitcoin. We had the long hair, And I just liked a lot of the things he was saying, and it was clear that he was not the BSing us type of YouTuber that we were used to at the time. So I started watching him, and through that I learned about his project, which at the time was called Bitcoin HEX. And God, that felt like forever. Like, because the more he talked about it, the more I was like, this is cool. This is going to be really cool. And then its name changed, and then, like, all the things changed. It's very, like, liquid design process, really.
Hex.win for a long time.
Yeah. I remember when we got the .com, and I don't know if he ever disclosed how he got the .com or how much it cost, but I
don't remember that.
I remember. I have a feeling it probably wasn't cheap, but regardless, we got the .com. That was a huge boost, right? Getting that.
Yes.
And it's been a long story, really, for all of us, and some of us not as long as others, right? Because I haven't been here as long, but yeah,
you've been here longer than a lot of people got in 2020, 2021, and if you've been here, if you remember CFD token or Bitcoin Hex, you've been here. You're an OG for the days served under Richard Hart live streams, I think.
Yeah. I've certainly. Some would say maybe I've been here too long, but that's probably a good thing.
Hey, I don't think I don't know, like, what they say, in companies and stuff, for example, you've been at a company too long, maybe you get used to things, you don't, we need to bring in new people for fresh ideas and stuff like that. Does that work the same in crypto communities, you think? Or
they're so fast paced, like the vast majority of people in crypto spaces are here for the pump, and then they're gone for the dump. Like, they're moved on to something else. And we've actually seen that a lot, I think, in the community recently. But it's like, I remember when Hexo he was like the first streamer, and then we had Discourse sitting it. Like, all that stuff was like crazy at the time. And it's crazy how far it's all gone, really. It's all come very, very far.
Yeah, just up and to the right, man. It slows down from cycle to cycle, but it just keeps going up and to the right. For your stock I'm talking about, at least.
Yeah. For sure.
That's something I heard, and you were talking about before. I don't hear a lot of people talk about Bittrex, and that's one of the exchanges that I remember, especially back then, that was pretty popular. It's still fairly popular, not as big as all the other ones, but they're still around, and they haven't been hacked or all these things, as far as I remember.
I don't think they've ever been hacked.
I don't think so. Pretty good track record over there.
Yeah. They get dropped from the stream. Am I back?
Yeah, sorry. I think we both dropped, or maybe Streamlink. There's StreamYard's having problems or something. Our bots on Bittrex.
Yeah. Okay. So Bittrex was like the place if you were in the United States and you were looking at exchange. It was the exchange, because I think this was even like Coinbase was infancy, really, at that time.
If it existed, was Polo.
Oh yeah.
I had that, but then they kept delisting coins and stuff. There's always some problem. They got rid of the chat, which was a big deal, and all that stuff.
Yeah, PulseX was like really, like, that was like the cool kids. I think. Like Bittrex was like the normal people getting into crypto, and Poloniex was like cool kids go here. And then I didn't use Poloniex because like if I remember they had some stupid fee model that I didn't like.
Okay.
But regardless, yeah. So I was on Bittrex, and Bittrex had an API and a few other exchanges that were like kind of worse, but they had APIs too. And I was like, well, if I could just write a bot that does TA, right? Like it's like TradingView does like the automated TA stuff. So I was like, well, if I can just like open some Python, and there's a library called like NumPy, which just does all the crazy math stuff you can do. I would write just like basically all of the TA math into NumPy, and then have it calculate TA on live data feeds.
That's cool.
And I'd be like, okay, so it'll just buy when a certain amount of these things line up and sell when they don't. And that like almost never worked.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it worked about half the time. So like I didn't lose any money really, but I didn't gain anything. There were times where I gained and there were times where I lost, but they all pretty much balanced out. And I think the real problem I uncovered is that the APIs lie on all these exchanges. They don't accurately to the T give out data. Like sometimes they're 15 minutes behind. Sometimes they just skip. Like if you look at like, and a lot of things do this, but like if you look at pretty much any tool, like when someone really buys, there's a wick, right? That's immediately the wick down. And a lot of these APIs would exclude the wick, right? Because of that. And like that doesn't help when you're trying to like actually instantly math these things out like to the second.
Right.
So I like that was part of it, but it's also part of like you're trying to do TA on. I had it doing TA on every coin that was listed on Bittrex, which is probably a bad idea. Right?
Yeah.
It was like everything.
Okay.
I mean, it did it, but I was like, because I was really chasing those like little whale pumps, right? Like I wanted to find before some whale went in and just pump and dumped something. I wanted to find it and get in there right at that time and then get out. But yeah, it basically didn't work.
So how would you? So if you're writing that today, you said it works half the time. Like you're using NumPy again and writing it. Would you even write it in Python? Would you write it in a different language? Like how would you build one today? Even?
I would do the same thing, but I would do it much longer term, and I would be selective of what I put in it. So I would, you could do the staples, you could do a couple of the other ones you care about that you're not going to get upset with if you lost. Because one way that bot lost a lot was because it was doing everything on the exchange. It would get into coins that looked like good buy opportunities because they were going to delist it. So they would announce like 30 days. Oh, okay, we're going to delist this in like 30 days, right? So everyone's selling. That. So the bot would be like, everyone's selling. This is a good buy, and it's not a good buy because they're about to delist it. Things like that.
Okay.
So
you'd have a check for is there a delisting page for this coin? If so, don't report goodbye.
Yeah. So it's like I think if you're selective and you do it long term, like I mean, it's basically auto trader, right? Like you're just it's gonna do TA, and it will only do things if TA is right. And potentially, maybe instead of having it just automatically do it, you just have it text you or something, so you can just look at it,
right?
Something like that. But I don't think there's a real good way to do that aside from Uniswap. Uniswap might be the only real way to do that these days, just because you can be certain Uniswap is not lying to you. Or withholding information. So, but back then we didn't have that. So if I were going to do it again, I guess that actually changes things, doesn't it? Because then I wouldn't do it in Python. I'd probably do it in JavaScript or TypeScript because the tooling there is better for like interacting with the chain.
Yeah.
So,
Node or
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I remember writing a tool back then. I think in Python too, that would basically it would use CoinMarketCap. And it would look at the biggest gainers and biggest losers page they had. It would parse that. I didn't use the API. I was just parsing HTML like back then. And it would tell me, it would alert me, send me an email to an email address that I would keep, with notifications on when something was, plus 20%, plus 30%, it would just keep doing it, escalating, or down 20%, down 30%, down 90%. And back then, pump and dumps were like crazy common, like every day, multiple times a day. And then, that was like my trading information to do stuff like that. So, I remember writing, and not our bots, but information like, hey, this might be a good deal to get, do this and that on it too. So very interesting. I've always wondered. I never wrote an RBot before, but I've written code before to do other things. So I always wondered, what goes into it. Use NumPy with the numbers library with Python. Never thought of that. Yeah, that makes sense. So very cool, man.
Yeah, like it's like the competition for that stuff this day and age is real hard too, because like if you look at like Uniswap, our bots, right? Like that stuff's not open source. Like the actual good ones, like I'm not aware of any that are open source that are actually complete. And the ones that like people are actually using to do it, they don't share that, or they make you pay for it. Because like if they're actually good and they're actually extracting value, they only work if everyone else sucks. If everyone else sucks, you're the winner all the time.
That's kind of like the entire market, right? You need 99% of people to lose for the 1% to gain. And wow. I got a bunch of questions queued so far, but I want to get into, before I'm gonna warm you up on Hedron. But I'm curious, I want to know like the creation of Hedron. Just I guess just the motivation, like what were its original goals? And did you always have staking in mind? I remember, you dropped Icosa was the original name for it before, and then there was some scam project using Icosa. So you kind of saved that for a later type of thing until it died off. That was a really good story. But I'm just curious, like during the creation, take us through like what was on your mind as far as you wanted to create something. Was it creating something initially to have a positive feedback loop with HEX and stuff, or was that kind of something that just aha moment, this can also do that?
I think initially it's hard to go back because it's been a long time, but the original core idea was to have a token that represented a share, which is one of the things Hedron does. And it evolved from there to include, we could do this borrowing thing, right? And that would be a thing. Then you could have like duality there. And then once borrowing was written, I was at a point where I was just like, well, this is basically everything you need to do encapsulated stakes, right? Like, so you might as well just finish that part off and have that be a feature too. Through all of that, when you're creating a token, that's effectively what it does is it turns your HEX stakes into a Bitcoin miner, right? It's like you make a stake and it can just constantly, while it's active, mint tokens at a certain rate, and no one else can do that other than you, and people will come after you, get a worse rate. Like it's very much like mining, just without the miner. Your HEX stake is the miner. So like there in the back of my head, I'm thinking, well, this goes one of two ways. Either people love this and it doesn't need a staking system, or it needs a way for people to, like, it didn't necessarily have to be staking, but it was needing some kind of value thing for the holders, right? Because if there's anything that I've learned in crypto, it's that, especially with HEX, is that holders don't want to just hold, right? Holding is like, because you always have the option to sell when you're holding, like even if you don't really want to. Like, we've all kind of been there where we're like, hey, I really like this coin and I think it's going to do very well, so I want to buy a lot of it, I want to hold it, and then it goes down 10%, and then that little gremlin in the back of your head's like, well, maybe it's going to go down 20%. Maybe I should sell, even if you believe in a thing.
Yeah, well, and that's where staking comes in, I think, a lot of times too. Because when I'm staked and I look at the price chart, I actually, first of all, I tend to not look at the price chart very often. But when I do, I'm like, well, it'll probably go back up, and there's nothing I can do about it anyway, so I kind of like wave it off.
Yeah, and but not a lot of people have that kind of self-control. So there needed to be. I thought there was probably going to be a need for there to be a way to help the holders or give benefit to the people who held, and like staking is just the obvious choice, really. So when launching Hedron, I already kind of knew that would have to be a thing, but you're limited by two things. Number one, you're limited by contract size. So that's one thing a lot of people don't know, is that you can only write a contract that's so big on the blockchain. If you write too big of a contract, it'll just reject it. You won't be able to commit it to chain. So there is no room in Hedron to put staking. Even if you wanted to do it, you couldn't do it. Like, in fact, Icosa alone is like 99.95% of the maximum contract size it can be. It's like
wow.
it is there. So
that's a cool fact.
Yeah. So, I knew it was something that would come later, and I knew that, well, we're going to give these tokens to all these people. Maybe what's probably going to happen is the people who don't believe in it, just want to get the free airdrop money, those people will dump it, not really realizing that they're dumping 2 years worth of time, and that's fine. And then the people who do get that and they do believe it and they think like this HEX derivative thing could be something cool, well, they'll hold it. So really, Hedron came out, basically went what I said. I was talking on streams a lot, and I was saying, well, it probably will dump and go to around 7 zeros, because that's the point at which $1,000 would buy you a whale position. So, that's a real incentivized point to buy. So that was kind of, it went pretty close. It was like 6 zeros, 0.001, right? It was like right just about the transition to 7 zeros. And that's kind of been the bottom. And so at that point, I decided, okay, staking's ready to be put live. So that was me working in the background with Icosa. Like as you said, originally it was going to be Hedron was going to be Icosa, and then the other half would be called Hedron. But at the time when I launched Hedron, there was another project coming out on BSC called Icosa that was like a rug pull scam, and I was like, okay, well, we can't call it that. But fortunately, those guys never actually launched, and they just deleted their website. They actually tried to get me to buy the domain after I'd already changed it to Hedron, so I told them no. But that's a fun story.
Did it? So was staking was it created? So I guess the biggest criticism I remember is like, oh, the whales can dump forever. The HEX, talking about the HEX whales. Was that like motivation to create the staking portion, or did it kind of just like, oh, okay, and it solves this problem? Like, how did that come about?
Well, the whales dumping forever problem solves itself at some point, because they can dump a lot at first, but moving forward, they can't dump a lot. The Hedron price went up, I don't know, like 400, 500% before Icosa was even being talked about from that bottom. So, they lose the power to massively affect price. Once you have like now, where we have almost 100 trillion tokens on market, dumping 4 billion doesn't move the charts a whole lot. So they lose that ability, and then there's already been stakes going through the auctions, so there's already been people buying to bid in those. So it would have eventually just solved itself regardless, but the staking system just makes it solve itself faster, more or less.
And then the other criticism too, nobody's using the liquidation auctions. Who's going to use this? Was that kind of addressed with Icosa and WAATSA? Like, oh, okay, you want to use the auction, you want to get HSIs, you want to do stuff like that.
I mean, it was already working. Like, there was already there's been 70 or 80 HEX stakes auctioned since Hedron launched, and maybe that's not a ton in some people's estimation, but a lot of those are pretty big. Like, there was a 24 T-share one that went off not that long ago. So, and a lot of those were probably just like some guy bought a lot of Hedron, and he knows if he puts a stake through there, his Hedron bag goes up, right? Because people will buy just a bit on his stake that he put through. But yeah, this is basically rocket fuel for Hedron's tokenomics in a way, because it's just going to fill. Maybe we already know that it is going to fill, because there's almost 4,000 HSIs pending liquidation at this point. So
yeah. Well, while we're on this too, like what other criticisms have there been that you feel like you've addressed, and if are there criticisms still that you just have made trade-offs where you're like, okay, we just can't do anything about that, or it'll solve itself eventually, or maybe in the future we'll have a new project that'll take care of that?
I don't think there's going to, or there needs to be another project personally, but I could be proven wrong, I guess.
Everyone else wants that though. Remember that.
Oh yeah. Everyone wants more projects, right?
Yeah.
Do I think there needs to be anything that directly adds into this circular ecosystem between HEX, Hedron, and Icosa? Probably not, but maybe there's something I'll figure out eventually. I'm always thinking, man. It's like I always look at markets and I'm like, yeah, man, if people didn't do this one thing, like price would go up, and then I'll think if you can do that in a smart contract or not. But yeah, it's I don't think, like, most criticisms have been misplaced from the beginning, um, because they weren't really criticisms to begin with. Like, well, they're criticisms, but they weren't really valid because all of those things mathematically solved themselves at some point. They just didn't solve themselves fast enough in some people's estimation. I haven't heard any more other than just like whales dump it to zero, which hasn't happened, and at this point, I don't think it will happen.
Gotcha. Let me get to questions. So we got first one from Serge. He's kind of a resident troll, but he makes good points sometimes. So we keep him around because he can add sometimes to the conversation. Don't forget to ask Al about OA selling Hedron and Uniswap. Any merit to that one?
So there's an OA daughter address. A lot of the OA daughter address minted their free Hedron. One of them put roughly, I think it was like 1 trillion Hedron in like what's basically a Hedron sell side position on Uniswap v3. So this was at the time where like Hedron was like really ramping up, and this is probably one of the only like things I didn't properly think about launching Hedron. That, you know, fortunately with Icosa was handled much differently. But when Hedron launched, everyone made USDC pairs, right? So when you have HEX USDC and Hedron USDC, and Hedron's the new shiny thing, and people decide, okay, I'm going to sell my liquid HEX for Hedron, the HEX has to go through the USDC pair. So it's a HEX dump, and then it's a Hedron pump, right?
Yeah.
And that's a negative HEX thing, and it's a positive Hedron thing. So when the OA put that sell wall there at that point, what effectively happened was all of those trades that went from HEX to Hedron just went straight HEX to Hedron because the liquidity was there to do it. So it meant that it basically stopped the HEX dumping for people who wanted to get into Hedron. Now, it also made a top, essentially, right? Because 1 trillion tokens is a lot of Hedron, and at that time, the liquidity was fairly thin. So that flooded a lot of people out. And, you know, I look at it as a situation where if the OA didn't do it, there would have just been more sucking value out of HEX, pushing Hedron up. And then someone would have probably dumped eventually, one of the whales that did dump, right? So, you know, it's like one of those things where I don't necessarily view it as a negative action. It was more of a like defend HEX action, and really a signal to say, hey, if you're going to build on HEX and we want to do things on HEX, the primary liquidity pool, or at least a significant portion of it, needs to be HEX / that thing, because these things all need to be directly interchangeable with each other without killing each other on the USDC pair. And I personally think that's fair. So I originally, like when I first launched Hedron, my thought was, well, if we don't have a HEX pair, people just won't sell HEX for it because they'll have to make 2 hops and pay double fees. And that was a complete misestimation. They will totally... Yeah. People were so willing to dump HEX for basically anything that knew that was going to build on HEX. So I think if anyone's listening and you're going to build something on HEX, you know, you want to try to convince the people who are going to be liquidity providers in your communities, support the HEX pair. It's vital for the survival of everything.
Or the OA may nudge you in that direction.
Yeah, if you don't do it, the OA will make it a certainty for you.
Wow, that is I love hearing the OA moves because, you know, everyone, can you talk about it? Oh, what happened here? Oh, but should, you know, I don't know. I'm all for transparency and want to see these things. I don't think it hurts anything. The OA's reputation. The OA is HEX holder's best friend. It wants to protect the HEX price. It's what's in the best interest for the product. If that's putting up, you know, liquidity for something to kind of switch things around, that's what it can do, and that's what it's meant to do. So. Yeah, I don't think it's really controversial, honestly. I think it's like, yeah, like you said, you broke it down. It made sense to you. And yeah, I don't remember there being, I guess there was more, maybe I missed it. I don't remember that being such a controversy back then, but I could see how, you know, some people could take that and run with it.
It was really the start of it. Like the OA did it. And then, you know, I kind of got it from that point, and I tried to convince people like, hey, you should probably put on the hex pair. If you don't want that wall to exist, you should probably support that pairing. And a lot of people didn't do it. Even today, a lot of people still put it on USDC, but we do have a lot more hex liquidity, so it's less of an issue. Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought I lost you again.
No.
Okay, cool.
I freeze sometimes, but I always come back. So
right,
knock on
cool.
wood. Knock on wood. Steve, we got a lot of questions here. Let me get to a couple more before we go on. Hopefully don't miss one. Okay, which one, guys? Did you watch the RH interview? What'd you think about the next year?
So I haven't watched it yet. Oh, sorry.
Okay. No, that's okay. Then I'll take it then. Alex hasn't watched it. I watched it, but apparently I didn't watch it to the end because I don't remember anything about next year. I just remember him talking, them reading the super chats, and I think, I went off and did some stuff. So please, chat, fill us in on what happened, and we can discuss what happened. So I'm gonna have to go back and watch that after the stream.
Yeah, I've been hearing rumors. Yeah, I've heard rumors that that's what he said next year. I can't say I'm like
launch.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I'm hearing happen, and I don't know. I don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, I look at this kind of having a decent idea of like we all know what Richard stands for, and he's not going to launch something that sucks. Like he spends a lot of time pointing out everyone else that sucks. So he will not tolerate himself sucking. I don't ever see that happening. And layer ones are really hard, especially since you can know what a smart contract does in its entirety because we're afforded the what would you call that? We're like a higher level up, right? We're afforded to not have to think about blockchain and consensus code and all these things if you're going to write smart contracts. Layer one's way harder. There isn't some auditing company you can pay 40, 50 grand to tell you that your L1 isn't going to get hacked. Like those people don't exist.
Yeah.
You need good devs. You need lots of them. And I think planning, I know they've been talking about like publicly about planning for like some DDoS attacks and things like that. And I think that's good because those are valid things. Because even if like he launches PulseChain and let's say it does get DDoS attacked, right? That no one's going to point at the DDoS attacker and just be like, oh, it's that guy's fault. No, they're going to point at Richard and say Richard's chain went down. Like that's not the message he wants to put out. That's not the message any of us want to put out. So especially when the majority of the rest of the crypto community doesn't like us very much.
People don't like to hear 2023, man. I've definitely changed my view the past couple months. I think we're all looking forward to mid-May. That didn't happen. We're like, okay, maybe June, maybe July. It can't be longer than that, can it?
But did you watch his BitBoy stream?
Yes.
So yeah, I thought it was really interesting the part where he was talking about how some of his devs said mid-May, and then he repeated it, and that he would have never done it if he had actually known.
Yeah,
and it's like funny to me because like the only reason we're upset about this is because he said mid-May. If he had never said mid-May, we might all be a little sad right now, but there wouldn't be as many people upset about it.
I think he's going to stick to probably a couple months. I think he'll stick to that for a while. I don't think you're going to hear the name or the mid of the month coming out of his mouth until we're actually ready. So
yeah,
that's positive, I guess.
If you look at the code, like things change. Like they're doing something. They're not just sitting on their asses telling us a couple months until we forget. And it's not one of those situations. Like they're building.
That's what people. So I went through the 3 scenarios before just to discuss them with other people too. But a lot of people think that he is just sitting on the code and that he's waiting for the bottom of the bear market. That's like one theory out there, conspiratorial or not. That's one thing a lot of people think, and it makes them angry, and they do all this stuff. And then the other part is, but what you're saying is no, he's probably we have these serious bugs that's taken longer than expected to fix, or he's sorry to give you any expectations, but it's taking a long time to fix these bugs. We're testing them right now, and when it's fixed, then we'll launch ASAP. That's a couple of different scenarios. You absolutely do not think that he's trying to time anything then?
No, if it had been, if like PulseChain came out like about he said it was going to come out in like November, December, maybe I'd be like, okay, maybe a little, right? But at this point, with where we are in time, with how long it's been, I think like no one benefits more from PulseChain launching than him.
Yeah.
He wants it out more than any one of us do, for sure.
Well, it's successful launch though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
No one loses
that's
more
the only
if
way
it's
it
got a
can.
false start.
Yeah, he cannot launch it. I won't say he cannot launch it, but he will not launch it, I don't think, without knowing, with all the possibilities that he can know, that it's going to launch successfully.
Yeah, I think so too. I think I don't think there's any smoke and mirrors. I think Richard, he is a master marketing guy, but I think that, like you said, the facts speak for themselves. No one benefits more than a successful launch than him. He wants to get it done right. We just trust in him, not to. If you're, I think most people are complaining are over leveraged. Bear market. Mm-hmm. They expected this thing to launch in December. PulseX, that's the step. We're going.
Well, like I'll put it this way, also, right? Like, yeah, it's like the whole like, yeah, you're out the whatever you sacrificed. Yeah, you're out that for right now, and all these things. But you got into the SAC at a much better time than if it happened right now. Like the coin valuations of whatever you put in were way better when the sacrifice happened than now.
Outside of USDC. Yeah.
Outside of USDC, sure.
That's true. Yeah. Remember when HEX was 20 cents and 30 cents?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like, right now Icosa has the like we're all the essay thing going on, and like that's probably like the most common thing I see right now on Telegram, because like the whole market's down a lot right now, is that it takes more coins to get the same kind of position in that than it did like a couple days ago.
Is that bullish, especially if we get into a bull market again?
Maybe. I think we have. I don't like to be a bear. Like I'm not a very bearish person in general, but when Richard's out there saying 11K and pray, like I halfway wonder, like, okay, is this the leg? Is this the 11K and pray leg that we're finally in? Is it finally time? So
well, just I guess the question goes into too, if you're minting WAATSA NFTs right now and you're putting I don't know if I guess it makes a big difference or not. And you're putting a lower value of your coins that you're putting HEX in, you're putting whatever MAXI in, whatever it is. And then does that give it a bigger ramp to go up over time, or would it be better if you're minting bigger WAATSA NFTs or something when your coins are bigger value?
It just says it's personally disadvantaged to you a little, because the WAATSA part of Icosa's code checks Uniswap price, right, versus USDC. Like that's how it determines the points each get, and that's how it tries to resolve fair value. So if you could get in yesterday and the market was up 20% higher for the same amount of input currency, it would have 20% more points, so 20% more yield roughly.
Okay, gotcha. Let me get to. I wanted to get the. Sorry, everyone in the chat. I'm missing a lot of questions, but there's. I want to get to. I'll get back to questions in just a minute. What can you just, in the simplest way possible, because this is something I struggled with to even understand Icosa for a while, until Sloth finally just nailed it down for me. I heard him talk about it like 5 times, and I was like, Sloth, just tell me simply, what is the positive feedback loop, for example? For you, can you, as simple as possible, what is the relationship between Hedron, Icosa, and WAATSA? Like, how should people think about this in their Joe Trader brain that most people have out there?
Yeah, so Hedron and Icosa really have one mutual shared purpose, and that is stake more HEX, right? Take more liquid HEX on market, put it into stakes where it, for some period of time, that it can't be dumped on market. The more it can incentivize staking, really the better, because that can thin liquidity and makes it easier for HEX to both pump and dump. It's increased volatility, right? But you end up with a lot of these big whale sell walls and on the HEX chart that won't exist if they all get involved in these kinds of things, or if they find the desire to do so. So Hedron, or with especially with HSIs, really target the person who wanted to stake, like they like the idea of staking, but they don't like the commitment. Like they can't commit to 15 years. The HSI gives them the ability to say, like, okay, well, maybe I'll do it and then I'll sell it down the road if I need to get out of it, right? Icosa takes it a step further and says, if you need to get out of it, well, here's a buyer, right? Here's a potential buyer. If you can't find one, like here's a contract that'll do it. So there's that as the other option.
Okay.
And these really just facilitate you not having to it's easier to make that kind of commitment, and it still has the net effect of removing HEX from the market. But that's like a one-way street, and you can't just have all these stakes flood some kind of secondary market through that, or else you end up in a situation where these things sell at a very strong discount, and it's now a very, very proactive, opportune thing to go buy the cheap HEX stakes on the market versus trying to make new ones, and then you haven't really done anything at that point. So that's why it feeds them into the liquidation market, where people can use their free coins they minted from their HEX stakes, because every single Hedron in existence came from a HEX stake. So it will allows these things to get bid on and then redistributed to people who want to hold them without having to go to any third-party market thing. And the best people who are in the position to buy those stakes are the people who've staked the most for the longest, because they have the most Hedron, and they're more likely to hold it for a long period of time. So it's really just trying to incentivize all the right things once you have a liquid HEX stake. Because once you have a liquid HEX stake, you kind of let the cat out of the bag, right? So you put up all these game mechanics for the liquid HEX stake to incentivize the right things, and that's really the combination of Hedron and Icosa, is to incentivize those things.
How does WAATSA play into that with the ecosystem?
So WAATSA is just a ability for basically to seed Icosa in a way that is not a massive input of currency to the market. So you're able to come into it, and if you believe in the token, you want the NFT, you effectively get to play the role of the OA, right, or the SA in Hedron, right? You're in this pool. There is no actual OA and SA. Everyone gets their own equal chance to be a part of that, and you accrue yield. Your position grows as the OA or an SA does. Like the SA gets copies of bonuses as they happen. The OA gets the ES fees and or half of them and stuff like that. These will grow in a similar fashion until you decide you want the yield. And once you decide you want the yield, well, you're no longer part of that system, right? Because the OA and the SA, they don't really sell. So, that's the trade-off. It's this ability for everyone to kind of participate in being something like the OA and the SA, but with this kind of gamified system where there will be an ultimate winner of who held the longest.
Okay. And anyone who didn't get that the first time, just you gotta go back.
I mean, it's in the name.
Yeah, we are all the SA. Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you describe the Hedron ecosystem in general, including the other two? Is it just a way to de-incentivize liquid HEX to make sure everyone's incentivized to stake in one way or the other?
It just incentivizes staking at its core, and then on top of that, it gives you some interesting derivative products, right? So you get this token that essentially represents a share at one point in time, or specifically a B share at one point in time. And then with that token, you can sell it. You can use it to buy more HEX stakes when they come up through liquidation. You're able to borrow it if the value incentive is there for you. So one thing I really like is Crypto Kool-Aid. I don't know if you know Crypto Kool-Aid, right?
Yeah.
So he likes to call Hedron a shadow of a T-share, right?
Yeah. And
if Hedron's a shadow of a T-share, Icosa is really a reflection of a T-share, where they're kind of showing two ends of a spectrum, whereas every single Hedron represents a a share, a B share that existed at one point in time in its life, and a single Icosa represents the value proposition of a T share, like what it actually costs to make one in HEX terms.
Gotcha. Okay, very good. Processing, listening, processing, and chat at the same time, but no, great explanation. I'm going to go back up and get to the other questions in a sec, but I'm going to get to a recent one from Matt Hex. Having that deal for Icosa exception, was there anything you decided to add later you want to add that wasn't part of the original plan?
Yeah, so the original plan, a rough idea for Icosa was just the like Hedron staking and then staking whatever. It wasn't even decided it would. I didn't even know I was going to call it Icosa exactly, but it was you're going to have the staking for Hedron, and then you were going to have the staking for that token itself, which would give yield in both tokens. The rest of it came out of necessity, like the ideas of how it was actually going to get the Hedron to pay you back in the two tokens when you staked Hedron in the first place, or when you stake Icosa. That was born. That's what birthed HSI buyback, which was additionally like thrown in there. It's like, oh well, if we're going to do this, you can actually just throw these right into the borrowable market and run through that. And then, when you're looking at designing that system, trying to figure out, okay, well, does there need to be an OA like address for this? And it's where I kind of just was sitting there thinking, like, wouldn't it be cooler if the community could be it? Because in this system, you have a much lower supply token initially, right? So the actual role of an OA or SA like address is less significant just because of that. And so you already have that, and you already have the OA and the SA existing. So I was kind of in this position where I was like, well, you don't really need one. So it wouldn't be cool if we had one, that it would just be the people. It would be like a people address, I guess is the best way to call it. So and then it eventually morphed to We're All the SA. So technically HSI buyback and We're All the SA came after, but it was like it was a logical transition. None of it was like, oh well, we could just do this one thing, that'd be cool. It addressed specific holes that could have been a problem at some point.
Gotcha. And when you say we, is this true? Only you are the developer of Hedron? There's nobody else?
Yeah, so I have a friend, he goes in Telegram by Burrito. Like sometimes I run ideas by him and he'll tell me if he thinks they're stupid, more or less. And there's some mods in the Telegram and I respect, like Sloth is one. I respect a lot of things Sloth says. So sometimes I think of things and I'm like, Sloth, tell me how I'm an idiot here and how this it would be a bad idea. So yeah. I normally don't like disclose everything. I usually just say like, hey, if this one little thing existed, like for example, let's just say let's say you were someone that I was doing that to, and I just said, hey, I don't tell you anything about Icosa, and I just come to you and I just say, hey, if you could stake Hedron, would that be cool? And then you tell me what your thoughts are. And these are just people that I ask like generic questions to and try to get answers from, because you can build things that like from a logic point of view are incredibly logically good, but may not be like, people may not want to use it. Yeah. So so I always try to like go to people and ask them like, what do you think about this one thing or that one thing, and try to figure out how they would use it if it did exist, and then kind of design things that way. Because like what really matters in all of this is that people use it, because if they don't use it, then there was no point in doing it.
So you're the only one actually writing the code from the front end to the back end to the Solidity, all everything.
Yeah, I mean, I cheat a little, like the front and the back end are using Vuetify, which is like a library. A lot of people don't know what that is, but it's a way it's easy templating for things. But like you gotta take some. Yeah, I mean that's what libraries and frameworks are for. You don't need to write everything from scratch in that way. I get it. Like you said, most people are like, oh, what's a library? Yeah. Google for Python library. That'll give you easy explanation. Let's see what else we got here. Is Alex talked more about warehouse? I like that word, warehouse data center he's building. Yeah, I can talk about that. So there's going to be a lot of needs for whenever PulseChain does come out. There's going to be needs for some services to exist. I think someone's actually working on like nodes, so like an Infura like thing. That's one thing I want to do as well. We need the ability for people to deploy and run subgraphs. Not a lot of people know what subgraphs are, but pretty much every app on the blockchain planet needs probably uses a subgraph or something similar that does some kind of caching of events. You have you need, I don't know, there's just a lot of bits and pieces. Like Ethereum may be decentralized, but there's so much that goes into it that is centralized and actually a service that somebody pays for, and they make using it not an absolute pain. Like it's amazing any of this works at all, but a lot of that is held on the back of just companies that provide services. So we're going to need those services. So that's one thing I want to do. I primarily want to do it for myself because I have projects that are going to be on PulseChain, and I want those technological resources to be able to make all of my applications run quickly and people can actually use them, especially with like auctions, right? Because like that's time sensitive. I can't have there be a 1,000 millisecond delay when you click bid, when you're trying to time the last second. Like the delays need to be minimal. So
is that basically like what's next for, and maybe you want to go into that too if there's more, but like is that what's next for the Hedron ecosystem?
That's the next big thing. I don't know if it does anything specifically for Hedron or Icosa other than it's going to make them ensure that they're usable on PulseChain to the maximum degree. But we need it as like a ecosystem as a whole, right? It's like every single person who's building anything on PulseChain are going to need some of these things to exist.
Gotcha. Is that so? It's just for this ecosystem. Like you said, there's no new projects coming up. Are there new apps? I guess there could be new apps because I know on the website there's apps. There's Hedron. There's Hedron. By the way, I'm gonna get this correct. Hedron, right?
Yeah.
Hedron.
Sorry, I don't correct people very much when they say Hedron because it depends where you live. Like
Yeah, I just want to make sure because I went back and forth. Me and David Feeder too, and we said it different ways. I think we had this conversation. But anyways, Hedron. Everyone, Hedron. Hedron. Yes.
Yep.
There's different apps. There's a Hedron app. There's a Icosa app. There's HEX app. Are there more apps coming?
I'd like to do one for like the whole MAXI team thing when that comes out, because I think it'd be cool to have all those in there as well. There's a lot of like diagnostic things I'm doing. So like right now, what I'm spending most of my time working on is I'm writing the subgraphs for Icosa so that we can have a lot of the statistics stuff that we want to see, like where are all the stakes, how long are their minimums, how much, that kind of stuff. We want to be able to see all that stuff. I want to be able to display that for HEX, Hedron, and Icosa at least in there. So there'll be like it's like there's apps now, but then there will also be like analytics sections that you won't need to have a wallet to view, and you can just go in there and search for what you want. Probably have like some dashboardy things with some global metrics that people can keep track of.
That'd be great.
Because what's happening here, it's one thing that we have HEX and we have all the tools for HEX, right? But HSIs somewhat break those tools, right? Sometimes we want to know, well, how many of these are HSIs? And every HSI is its own address. So it appears to some tools like an individual staker, but it's not. They're all combined. So some people have supported, like stakehex.today supports HSI stakes, but some tools don't. And we have some tools out there that are semi-abandoned, where someone wrote it and it was really cool at the time, and it still works, but it's not being actively developed anymore. So,
right.
I'm looking at this from a things like, well, I'm building on HEX, the MAXI team's building on HEX. Who knows who else builds on HEX in the future? It would be best if we can have kind of a good all-rounded place for the majority of this data over time. So I'm writing the stuff for that, and I'd like to bring MAXI and team and base into it so we can analyze a bunch of that stuff and just be able to have like an app that answers all the questions. Because right now, if I want to answer a lot of questions between HEX, Hedron, and Icosa. I need like 4 browser tabs open just to be able to do anything. And I can't promise the app will solve that entirely, but it can solve a good chunk of it.
Definitely. DeFi apps.pro. Or you think it'll always be like Icosa.pro, or I'm sure maybe you'll consolidate at some point once you get all the ducks in a row on that.
Yeah, so it'll be at Icosa.pro. The Hedron.pro app page will point there as well. Maybe I come up with some generic name too. That's what
I was going to ask too. What is the liquidation auctions? Are they moving to
yes.
the app section? Yeah, okay, I figured.
Yeah, they'll go on the Hedron side.
Gotcha. Oh, this is the start. This is the launch. This is it's already so much cool stuff and it always works so well, but there's so much more that can happen, like you just said. Amazing.
Yeah, there's a lot of work and you can do in that just to make every like the dream is like you have a question about something HEX related on the blockchain and you can just answer it through some application without you having to go dig through Etherscan transactions for 10 hours. So we're not quite at that level yet, but it would be cool if we could do that for the majority of things.
Why don't you just go create a meme coin? It's so much easier, isn't it?
It is way easier, man. Like copy, paste, open Zeppelin, don't use a Squarespace. Like you don't even need to write the web page. Just use Squarespace. Like,
basically, actually, I use Squarespace for RHMax.org. Actually, so yes,
it's great. Squarespace
true.
is great for like you just need a website that says stuff, right?
I use it for the blog. Yeah, it's fine.
It's great for that stuff.
Simba. I was talking to Simba earlier on GRC's channel, and when PulseChain let Conrad launch it. Maybe we don't let Conrad launch it. No pun intended. But he's busy right now with Pizza, and it sounds like trying to get that figured out. What are the questions? Kind of next year. Who knows? I mean, I have questions. I'm just trying to be nice to chat here because you guys show up and ask good stuff. What's up, Alan? What's up, Alan? Hey, by the way, everyone, smash all the buttons. You know which ones they are, especially the sub button. What's the phrase? I see 60% of you aren't subscribed to the channel. Just go ahead and click that button. Yeah, that's the advertisement on all the big channels, at least. We are all the sloth essay. Nice, bullish. Open sources bay, Alex, Hedronians. Yeah, sorry, some of these are out of context because we've been talking so good for a while. Hey, Wales, what's up, man? He says, I need Hedron data. Sir, please.
Well, I'll get you some Hedron data.
Hedron, damn it. I did it again, didn't I? Hedron, yes. When data launch, sir. You guys are awesome. Yes, thank you. Please like. About to get. No other questions. Cool. Oh, no, one question. Who would buy it? I'd buy it, Alan. You launch that right now. I'll buy it. All in on Fizz Ame Inu token. All in. Yes.
You just got to put Inu at the end and people buy it for some reason.
Yeah, that's the next one, isn't it? It's let's see, you got Hedron, you got Icosa, you got WAATSA. It's whatever it is. The next one's got to end in INU, right?
Yeah, right.
IUNUSTA. Maybe a prefix. I don't know.
Yeah, if you put it at the beginning, maybe it moons more. You know.
Oh my God, is that new game theory? Hot alpha happening right now. Hot alpha. Icosa, yeah, I want to talk about Icosa some too. So, launched August 15th. Is it 000? Is that midnight? I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
Okay. I said midnight the other day. I was confused, but yeah, because when I see 0, yeah.
Yeah, so it launched August 15th on UTC, and then like the stake days, so like when yields actually calculated.
Right.
It's a bit different in one way because the so Icosa does like a global staking system. So like, but one thing to kind of like conceptualize the difference between Icosa and HEX is HEX. When you create a HEX stake, right, your HEX stake kind of lives in its own little mathematical bubble, right? It keeps track of its own payout per share. So there's a global payout per share, but then when you end the stake, it's got to like go through the history of that, and that's part of just how HEX works.
Right.
Icosa goes a different approach and then uses a global payout per share that constantly increases, and It just keeps track of like when you started and when you ended within that constantly increasing payout. So what this means is like somebody has to do a transaction within the system to update yields. So like when UTC day change happens, everyone's yield isn't immediately updated because you can't just automate things on blockchain. Somebody has to do something. They have to move a token, they have to stake, unstake, whatever. It doesn't really matter what it is. Someone just has to execute one transaction to update everyone else's yield. So like, so I tell people it's like at UTC day change when it happens, and then they're sitting there refreshing, constantly,
Yeah.
but it won't happen until someone does something. So it usually takes a couple minutes after like UTC date change for all this stuff to update.
Isn't that something that the SA does? No SA expectations, but
I don't think so. I haven't seen it do anything. It really just because anyone can do it, right? It's like it could just be as simple as you buying some or selling some on Uniswap. Just some action that involves Icosa has to happen.
Gotcha. Well, a great segue too into I think it's affectionately referred to as, maybe not officially, maybe not, or maybe not, the Hedron war chest. Hedron war chest. What is that for people who don't know? What is the Hedron war chest?
I don't know what the Hedron war chest is, so maybe you can tell me. Is that
seems like there's a bunch of coins in there, and some of them get burned sometimes.
the essay? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. All right. What I don't know who has control of it, but it seems like they burn some tokens every once in a while. And they did burn some. The last one was like, what, a trillion tokens, I think, something like that.
Something in the ballpark.
Yeah. And that was like 3 or 4 days before Icosa launched. So part of the reason Icosa is seeing some positive yield for people right now is partially because of that, because Icosa is based on the burning of Hedron. So basically it took that 3.5 trillion, seeded out for 360 days. And part of that is SA burnings, part of it's auction burnings. It's all kind of lumped together. But yeah, the SA has the ability, if it wanted to, or really anyone has the ability, if they want to burn their own Hedron to increase Icosa yield, that they can do that.
And what I guess what is it? Does it exist to make decisions for the ecosystem? Again, no expectations, but how should we think about the SA? Like, is there a way to say, okay, they are a friendly component of the ecosystem that seem to do nice things, or like how should people think about this thing?
Well, anything's an expectation, unfortunately.
I know.
So you should think of it however you think of the HEX OA. It's probably of a similar nature to however you think of the OA.
Okay.
If you think the OA is a bad thing, then you probably also think the SA is a bad thing. If you think it's a good thing, and you think it's a good thing. Everyone has their own interpretation.
So it could be a Hedron, Icosa, WAATSA's holders, best friend, protecting the price ecosystem, things like that. Just throwing
Could be, if you want to believe that. Yeah.
If you want to believe that. Okay. I like that. I like that belief. That's a nice belief. We got a couple questions. Where is it? I'm not going to lose it. Sorry, people, if I lose questions, but chat be scrolling. Are tokenized Hedron and Icosa stakes? What's in future?
No expectations.
No expectations. You've heard it here. We'll see. Other one. Any update on the WAATSA NFT art?
So you guys have aped that. Like people are like making like so many of them. So there's, for those of you who know, there's an AI called Midjourney, which is I currently have set up generating that art, but it's very slow. So it is all procedurally generated. I may actually go to the Telegram and say, hey, if you guys want to help generate it, because there's like 10,000 of these things, and there might be, and like we're not even halfway through yet, so maybe there's 20,000 at some point. Okay. I have no idea how many there are going to be, but it's going to take a while.
Right? We've hit over 10K, I think.
It's almost 11, I think.
Okay.
So if that number keeps increasing, like it just means it takes longer to generate the art, and I may just crowdsource it a little bit if it's going to take forever. So
Gotcha. Icosa currently does not have a logo on Uniswap. What do we need to resolve that?
You need to wait for CoinGecko or CoinMarketCap, one of the two, to list it. Or you can go fill out the application and if you want it to list itself. I've already done it once, but like they suck. They often don't respond to you. It took Hedron 3 months to get anything in the information on CoinMarketCap and CoinGecko. CoinMarketCap is mostly right, but CoinGecko still says the total supply of Hedron's like 52 million tokens, which like is
bullish.
well, people come in all the time into the chat that are not hexagons, right? They just find the token and they're like, how can the price be this if there's only 52 million tokens? Like, people can't be. You actually wouldn't be able to trade it at the price. And I'm like, there's not. There's like almost 90. I think there's more than 90 trillion now. So, and like CoinGecko refuses to update it for whatever reason. They all just suck. But that's a requirement. If you want to show up in Uniswap, you've got to be on those things.
It's extremely surprising that CoinMarketCap did something that was not favorable.
Yeah.
Very surprising.
Yeah, but there will be next update. I pushed to the uniswap.hedron.pro, which is like the Uniswap fork that I run. I'll put Icosa logos on there, so it'll be there.
Nice. All right. Can you talk about? So you think if you staked Hedron, Icosa, you minted at least one WAATSA NFT, have you passed the IQ test for this community? What makes you say someone is like, okay, they get it, or at least they've seen enough to convince them? Like what makes you DeFi proof?
And I think if you staked HEX, you won. Like you figured it out. If Hedron convinced you to stake HEX, then because you wanted some Hedron, well, then you've extra won a little bit more. And if Icosa convinced you to stake your Hedron, then you won even more than that. Like there's no losing in any of those situations. Like the best way, the most like optimized play here is like stake HEX, mint free Hedron, stake the free Hedron for free Icosa. It's a whole lot of free. And that's the whole thing is really just to get people. Like if I had to put it this way, like Hedron's kind of a thing to play with if you stake your HEX, and Icosa is a way for you to gain long-term value out of Hedron if you believe in Hedron. That's kind of like the circle in a nutshell. It's hard to conceptualize sometimes. I'm trying to be simple.
Sure.
But like if you're staking HEX, you're winning. Like that's like how many people don't stake their HEX? A lot. Like if more people staked HEX in general without anything else to like incentivize them to do that, like HEX wouldn't be 4 cents right now. Like someone has to sell it.
Yeah. Do you think so? What do you think the price go down? Do you think that incentivizes people or even makes them regret staking HEX in a way? Because they're like, oh, I could have sold it before it went out. I mean, I know they're making assumptions they would actually made that move or not, but how do you reconcile the HEX saves me from myself with price go down and now I have nothing to trade my HEX for with new shiny objects coming out, such as the products you've created?
Well, if we look at what HEX has done in the past, right? Like for me being in from the beginning of HEX, like this dip isn't much of a dip, right? I remember when 1 cent happened and we were like, oh, that was mind-blowing. It was mind-blowing when 1 cent happened. And then 5 cents happened, and 20 cents happened, then 50 cents happened. Like multiple levels
I think
of
at 3 cents, I was like, okay, this thing is legit. Like I've been in it for a while, but at 3 cents, I was like, I don't think it's going anywhere. I think Richard's new project is okay.
Yeah. Like there will always be points of bearishness. Like the HEX price is not designed to just go up forever. It is designed to have high volatility. If it only goes up forever, then you have a system where like nobody new gets in and wins. Like there has to be a reset. There has to be a dump. There has to be new whales made out of that dump. And I think, I can't say anything price wise about Hedron or Icosa because I made it, but about HEX I can. And I think this is a time where we are approaching where new whales will be made in HEX. And in the past we've decorrelated from Bitcoin and the rest of the market before. I'm curious and somewhat hopeful that it happens again.
You think this market new whales to be made? Like how? Yeah, is that just from them picking up the cheap HEX? Like, go into that a little bit.
Yeah, I think HEX is already really cheap compared to where it's been, and we do have buyers buying HEX. They're DCAing in, and you're seeing old whales go and dump their positions. We're seeing emergency instincts happening. We're seeing, I think we saw a decent amount of emergency instincts like yesterday, right? Yeah. So, we're going to be in this.
A bunch of liquidity pulled recently. I saw.
The liquidity was like moving and chasing the price down, and then I think some of them got frustrated and just dumped because they were like tired of chasing the price down in liquidity. So like we're in this market, and right now we're fairly heavily correlated with the market. So my immediate thought is that we're probably going to keep going with wherever the market goes for a little bit. But there is a point with HEX where people buy in and new whales are created. And I don't know where that point's going to be. And that's probably, if we ever decorrelate again like we used to, that will probably be a decorrelation point in my eyes with HEX.
Yeah, it's this market, the next market, whether we go sideways for a while. PulseChain launches. What do you think HEX does? What do you think HEX does? Like PulseChain, the announcement. I mean, do you think there's going to be a FOMO to get HEX? You going contrarian and like, actually, maybe not. You think there'll be a huge lead up to it? Like, what do you think's going to happen?
I don't know. I think it depends on it. Like if the launch is hyped up, I think there'll be some like a lot of people will want to get in just for the free copy. The question I have, and this is like some things that we're just not going to know until they happen. How much HEX gets bridged, right? How many people get their copies and then they bridge their EHEX over to like provide liquidity on both sides? If that happens significantly enough, then that's a reduction, at least somewhat, in liquid HEX that's available for sale on the Ethereum side. If it's being, kind of encapsulated on PulseChain by the bridge in a way. So like that's the thing I'm interested in seeing how that plays out. I do see there being like a buy the rumor, sell the news event with PulseChain launch. Like we see it with everything, all the sacrifices that have ever happened. Icosa coming out, like PulseChain's not going to be any different. There's going to be a buy the rumor, sell the news event. How extreme it is, I'm not sure. But
what you talking about liquidity and bridging over and stuff too? What is the most bullish play you could do for bridging? Like, are there some bullish plays for bridging in regards to HEX that could help HEX, could help PulseChain, PulseX, stuff like that? Well, I guess.
So what the market's going to have to decide is there a winner? Like, does EHEX or PHEX win, or do they both deserve their own existences? Right? That people get to kind of make this play. I'm of the opinion that they both deserve to exist. And they both will continue to exist. You'll just see them used differently. I think you'll see more longer term stakes be made, like on the Ethereum side, simply because of like the gas fees don't make sense to do short stakes. I think you'll see a lot of shorter stakes happening on PulseChain, a lot more staking activity, which is probably going to mean a faster share rate increase on PulseChain than on the Ethereum side. The Ethereum side will have big jumps in it, but it will have less like gradual going up over time. Right. That's kind of what I'm expecting. The incentive to bridge EHEX over for PHEX is really just to capitalize on, like, okay, you get your free PHEX copies. How many people want to turn their EHEX into PHEX, right? Like, so let's say you have 1,000 HEX, you get your 1,000 PHEX copies, and then you decide, well, I like PHEX more because it's on PulseChain. So I'm going to take my EHEX, I'm going to bridge it over, then I'm going to sell it for PHEX, right? Like, how many people want to do that? And then how many people are willing to provide the liquidity for that, right? How many people want the EHEX? I think it may be an opportunity to get cheap Ethereum HEX, right? If you want it, because you might be able to provide that liquidity and scoop a lot of that out and then go back to Ethereum and stake it if you want. So like we're really playing here with like what is the mental mindset of most people. And I think there's going to be a lot of FOMO in PulseChain. And one of the big things people will try to do is maximize their HEX positions on PulseChain because of that FOMO. So there may be opportunities to get good rates on EHEX at that point on Ethereum HEX, because it's kind of like the old kid, right? It's like oh yeah, no one wants to play with him. We want to play with the new kid. New kid's cool.
Yeah.
You know?
Well,
So,
but wouldn't if you're a holder of both, assuming you wanted to hold both, wouldn't it be in your best interest to want there to be parity or near parity for both pairs forever?
you would probably want that, but who decides that, right? The OA could decide it. The OA could make that a reality. He has enough, the OA has enough tokens distributed that if it wanted them to be equal, it could.
How would the OA do that, by the way?
The OA would just bridge over some EHEX. It would bridge EHEX over to Pulse, and it would bridge Pulse HEX over to Ethereum, and it would just liquidity pair them so tightly that the prices are more or less 1-to-1.
Can you think of if and okay, not conflating Richard and OA, but Richard has said he doesn't want to see cheap HEX anywhere, and the OA's mission is to protect the price. Could you see a future where that doesn't happen, where the OA doesn't make a big move to make sure there's parity?
Well, not wanting to see cheap HEX and there being a price difference are two different things, right? Like, does the OA want to see like one be 10 cents and one be basically worthless? No, the OA would likely not allow something like that to happen, in my opinion.
So at least they could put a floor in, is what you're saying.
Sure, yeah, they could put floors in, they could put ceilings in on one or the other. They could say, maybe the market demands one's 10% more expensive than the other, and that's within whatever the OA's margin is acceptable. The reality is, like, none of us know. Like, we're all just sitting here guessing what may or may not happen with that address. But it's the one with the power to do it if that's going to happen.
Is it? Can you see, so that we know the OA can do it? Can you see there being a group of whales? You think there's like a group of whales who talk to each other like, hey, you guys ready for launch? You want to make sure that the HEX prices still go price be up, price always be up. You think there's some coordination?
Maybe. Like, whales do weird things. The difference between like OA and whales tends to be, if you look at actions the OA typically takes, it's to keep it's generally in the best interest of HEX as a whole, and whales generally act in their own best interest.
Right.
So, those two things sometimes align and sometimes they don't. So you could see them playing along with that if they think they can get some kind of value out of it. Then I don't see why a whale wouldn't play along with it.
Well, it seems like the easiest play is to just get the copy and then keep both prices up. I mean, just the simplest view of you get a copy and then make sure both price stay the same. The more complicated thing seems like for coordination would be, okay, we're going to pick the winner. Which one's going to be the winner? And now we need to coordinate on all that stuff.
Yeah, like, there'll never be a winner, right? Because, like, if you decide that, okay, one's a winner and one's not a winner, like, all it takes is someone with some money to go pump the one that lost. Now it's not the loser anymore, right? Now, like, it'll be a forever undecided game. Instead, I see maybe there being a small premium or a small discount in one or the other. I think there'll be a range at which people allow it to trade, because at the end of the day, HEX is HEX, and it doesn't matter if it's on PulseChain or ETH, like, it still has the same value proposition. So I could see like PulseX having like a minor premium at first, because I think there's a lot of people that want it more than they want their Ethereum version. So I could see PulseX maybe just being slightly more expensive to get into, just because there's a big influx of money. Like, premiums tend to just represent where the flow of money is going. And if you have everything flowing into PHEX probably should be slightly more expensive. And in that case, maybe there's an opportunity that you, as a liquidity provider, can get a little HEX out a little bit cheaper than it's going for on Ethereum, right? Maybe there's some deals. Do I think there's going to be any crazy deals where like you can get 100% off? Probably not. I don't think anyone's going to let that happen. I don't think the OA would let that happen, and I don't think the whales would let that happen either, because it's too good of a deal, right? They would take it at 20%. They would take it at 15%, because 10% when you have $100 is not a lot, but 10% when you have $1 million, well, that's all of a sudden that's a lot more money. So if a whale can make 10%, the whale's going to make 10% and not let anyone else take it any further. So there'll be cooperation and fighting, but it's going to be wild no matter what. Like there's going to be lots of coins moving lots of places.
Just describe the pre-bridge action. I mean, do you think, for example, the FOMO for PulseChain for PLS will be real? Like you think, hey, free airdrop PHEX, I missed out on Pulse, SAC. You think be a great deal on PHEX? Like what kind of action do you think will be happening, even if it's for 10 minutes the super irrational moves too?
I don't know, because I don't know where like we have a lot more people in the greater Pulse ecosystem than we do in HEX. Like there's tons of people that have sacrificed and will be parts of this that are not part of HEX at all, and that's bullish on one side because more people, more players, we have a bigger game to play. The other side of this is like, where's the motivation? I think PulseX has the better short-term tokenomics, right? Because like Pulse really has one tokenomic, and that's that it goes away, versus PulseX has the single-sided staking system. It also goes away. There's a lot of like quicker, shorter-term games you can play with PulseX. So what I think happens is like one of two things. Either the PulseX tokenomics demand everyone who's in Pulse to like kind of go into PulseX, and PulseX moons a little bit, or the other outlier that we have no idea what the actual answer to this is until it happens, is how many people sacrifice to PulseX because they miss Pulse. You know what I mean? Like,
and that was their plan.
Yeah, and their whole plan from this entire time is to dump PulseX for Pulse because they missed it, and they want the layer 1 token because maybe they want to stake that layer 1 token with the validator, right? Like there is.
Well, that's their original plan, but you think chewing on it over a year, you think that they could be like, whoa, now that I see PulseX's capabilities.
Yeah, it's possible. But, I do think PulseX has the better, like, short-term or shorter-term tokenomics, but, and, like, Pulse is a much better long-term option. But it's hard to say, because with HEX, like, what people can do, right? It's well defined that like, well, you're either going to hold liquid or you're going to stake. Like, and if you hold stake, if you stake, we know you're going to stake it for this amount of time, or else you're going to get destroyed by fees. Like these are all guarantees in HEX. HEX has a lot of guarantees in it. There are much less guarantees and once Pulse launches over what happens in the relation between Pulse, PulseX, and all the other things that happen on top of it. And like we have ecosystem things like Fiat coming out with their Aave fork, right? Like that could be a big deal, right? Because that effectively means we will have shorting in some form on PulseChain fairly early. And like shorting does crazy things to prices, So
yeah, it does. The coins that we get copies of on there too, USDC, Link, Mana, some of the big ones. What do you think is going to happen to them? Do you think some of them will have value? Some will be dumped immediately? What do you think?
Well, so USDC came out and said they weren't going to support any proof of work forks of Ethereum, right? I don't know how they intend to not support them. I assume they just won't. They'll either like blacklist every address, or they will just not let the tokens be redeemable. One of the two. Remains to be seen how that goes. I'm not entirely certain they'll be different on PulseChain. If they were different, if USDC came out and said, okay, well, we're not going to support these proof of work forks, but we'll support PulseChain, that would be the most bullish possible thing that could ever happen. It's so bullish that I don't think it will happen. Like it's like moon talk, right? But
Yeah.
I think that they either one just won't know about it for a while and then find out about it and then just officially tell everyone, hey, we don't support these PulseChain forks. Obviously, you'll be able to bridge in USDC. I'm curious what happens with DAI, because technically DAI should still function, but we'll be missing some oracles. So there's some things that need to happen there.
Oh, right.
Like there'll be a lot of things that are broken, a lot of things that don't work, a lot of things that do. The more DeFi decentralized things are, the better chances they have of working on PulseChain if they haven't been specifically designed to be like, because like HEX is immutable, no admin keys. HEX doesn't care what chain it's running on; it just runs. Hedron and Icosa and MAXI, those are all the same way. Not everything's designed that way. A lot of things use Chainlink. A lot of things use various different oracles. A lot of things use Uniswap. Like that's one thing about Icosa is like it uses Uniswap to get the prices for We Are All the SA. And it's hard coded that if Pulse were to launch in the middle of We Are All the SA's minting phase, it would just terminate the minting phase on PulseChain because Uniswap's not reliable there, right?
Okay.
So anything that's hard coded to use Uniswap is probably going to be broken on PulseChain for a while. So like there's a lot of bits and pieces and a lot of experimenting that's going to happen with figuring out what will and what won't work, what gets abandoned and what gets supported.
What's going to be? Is there going to be anything better about Hedron, Icosa, WAATSA on PulseChain?
HSIs will be vastly cheaper, like to make.
Okay.
So again, HSI is not a cheap transaction because, like, number one, you're making a hex stake, then you're deploying your own smart contract and wrapping the hex stake within the smart contract, pre-funding it, and then like writing all the tiebacks so that you have control of it. And then if you tokenize it, well, that's it's even more gas because now you're turning it into an NFT. And then you want to sell it to Icosa, well, that's more gas. Like that's an expensive process on Ethereum, and on PulseChain that will be pennies, and it will be massive for like complexity and making advanced contracts, because like the reason a lot of people don't make big complicated contracts or like many layered contracts together that do cool things is because like it's too much. They can't ask brand new users to come in and say, hey, by the way, it's going to cost $100 to do this thing. Like it's non-tenable.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so you think transactions, I mean, just to do everything, it's going to be a lot cheaper. Everything else seamless, like don't need to like flip any buttons. Everything just works as far as the staking pools and stuff go.
Yeah, like the nice thing about Icosa and Hedron and I assume a lot of other Pulse projects is I've already wrote the applications, so the user interface, they're already written so that they support PulseChain. Like we know enough about PulseChain that I can just do that. So PulseChain will come out, you'll change your RPC settings, and those will just work.
Or you'll use the PulseChain wallet.
Yeah, if we get that. I mean, maybe we get that soon. That'd be cool.
Yeah. You think that's going to help the ecosystem too? You think, I mean, I guess the tokenomics there would be, the MetaMask fee kind of goes into maybe burnt or something like that. What do you think the wallet's going to look like?
I don't know. I don't know what I know like some people have teased the idea of a wallet sacrifice. I don't know what that will be for. Like, is there going to be a native wallet token? Does the wallet launch? Token. Yeah. So if there is, and then I'll just be interested to see what it does and how that works. The best thing to me about the wallet, and probably the most bullish thing, is I hope that it supports other chains. Like I assume it will. I assume it's not just going to be like some limited to PulseChain thing. Like it will be its own standalone wallet similar to MetaMask and work function. The best part about it is that we can do away with the censorship in MetaMask.
Yeah.
Because that's like the worst part. Like a lot of people don't realize that like Infura and MetaMask and a few other things are all owned by consensus, right? It's one company. Yeah. And if they decide like, oh, we're going to filter Tornado Cash transactions, well, they do that. And then MetaMask rejects it. Infura rejects it. If they decide they're going to cut access off to a country, they've done that before. Yeah. So
do you think the wallet as far as communities too, you said you think it could be used for other coins and stuff too. Do you think that helps bring in other communities by having them use a wallet outside of MetaMask? And can we get them to do that, knowing that MetaMask is kind of the gold standard?
I think so. I mean, Coinbase Wallet has decent penetration. Like, I'm not like there's currently a bug right now with the Icosa app in Coinbase Wallet, so I'm figuring that one out. But that tells me that there are people who use Coinbase Wallet. When people message me and say, hey, it doesn't work, and I have to tell them, hey, just remove Coinbase Wallet, go back to MetaMask temporarily, and I'll tell you when this is when it works for Coinbase Wallet. So the fact that like people tell me that, and then sure, there's not that many, there's maybe a handful, that tells me that there's a market for Coinbase Wallet, which is, why do you want to, who really wants to use Coinbase Wallet, right? Like most of us look at these decentralized exchange, like we're the worst community. Like if there's people in our community that use Coinbase Wallet, that means there's more in other communities, because our community is like very much anti-exchange, very much like
not your keys, not your coins.
Yeah. So, and like Coinbase Wallet is, you hold your keys. It's custodial, or I guess non-custodial. I don't know what the terminology is, but you have your keys.
Yeah.
But it's kind of just a ploy to get like that integration between like Coinbase's, centralized exchange stuff and DeFi. It's like an interface where like Coinbase, they don't want you to really interface with DeFi directly through them. They'd rather you take that risk yourself, but then their wallet lets you just do a couple of nice things on their side too, to like make the transition nice. Versus like, PulseChain wallet coming out standing for things like, that DeFi actually believes in, like censorship resistance and rights to privacy and stuff like that. That would be big. That would be well received everywhere. And so
that's a good point. It's something that could spread it. Just people looking for an alternative for a censorship. Yeah, I could see PulseChain wallet.
Yeah, because there's other RPCs, right? Like you don't have to use Infura.
Yeah, but does anyone know how to change those settings? That's the thing. I mean, the people who do, but it's learning curve. Question from Alan: what do you think of the proof of work ETH fork? How might it impact HEX, Hedron, Icosa? I don't think the fees are going to be lower. It's a very generic answer, but I'll let Alex take it then.
In short, right, it will come out, and I haven't decided what to do with this yet, right? So like they're gonna fork, right? It's very easy to fork a chain. I could go fork Ethereum tomorrow. I just copy the code and change the chain ID. I forked it. We're good.
Yeah.
It's one thing to do that. It's another thing to do it and have it actually work, and actually like they will have the advantage that they're just gonna copy something that already works and not have to change it. But there's a lot of things that are going to be missing, right? Almost every app interface on the planet is not going to support them. Every whatever it is, there's no bridges, right? USDC is not going to support it, so there won't be any stables that work. Like I look at all of these
classic 2.0, that kind of thing.
Basically, and like there's some bad things to this, right? Because like what's going to decide whether these work or not is whether USDC will support it. I think that's kind of dumb. Like
they have the trump card. Sounds like.
Well, like imagine this. Imagine they did the proof of work fork, and then Circle came out tomorrow and said, by the way, we're not supporting ETH 2.0, and USDC is going to be on this proof of work fork. Would ETH 2.0 actually have happened?
Another bear market. We're going to go deeper.
Like if like Circle has the power, they have the power to decide which fork of Ethereum lives and which one dies. So the only way that I see, because like obviously HEX, Icosa, Hedron, that we're all that say that all gets copied there, and it will still work there as long as that chain is functional. Whether or not the UI should support it or not, I would look to see like how well that chain gets supported in its early days. Is it going to get a bridge? Are people going to actually use it? Like there's a lot of questions that have to be answered there. It's like we know those questions with PulseChain because the sacrifice set tells us there's a lot of interest in PulseChain. We don't know that with that ETH proof of work fork. So, but I would say if it does get successful and it's like ETH Classic 2, but it actually does have users, it actually has value, and there are a lot of people who want to stay there regardless, and there's bridges for the USDC or whatever, you probably have to support it, right? Because
Another
there
copy
is,
of HEX, right?
yeah, because there is Hedron, Icosa, all that stuff technically exists there. Like whether we like it or not, it's been forked. So
EHEX, PHEX, POW HEX,
something like that.
POW Hedron.
I don't know how we'll figure that out, but
POW prisoner of war. Would it make sense to provide E Hedron, P Hedron liquidity?
possibly for the same reason it does HEX. We'll see what the prices do, right? Like, if people want them to be fairly well bound together, then great. But they will diverge. There'll be a point where like it won't be like HEX where there'll be equal amounts, because like Hedron and Icosa are both very much tied to the HEX share rate, and the HEX share rate will diverge on between the two chains. So they're like initially you could probably argue their value should be the same, but once the share rate significantly diverges, there's some ratio there where you probably want to like make sure one is more expensive or cheaper just based on share rate, because logically they should be, just because the mintability has changed of Hedron and the redeemability of HSIs for Icosa has changed. They're no longer the same on both chains.
Very interesting point. People, pay attention to that one. That's is there a yield benefit to staking equivalent dollar value in the Icosa pool in contrast to the Hedron pool?
Right now, the Icosa pool pays more just because there's less people in it. That's really all there is to it. So, like, I think the last someone told me, so I've not actually looked at it today. Last I was told, the Hedron pool is making like 150-ish%.
I haven't checked it for a while. I was just thinking about the Icosa pool, it paying out more. I'm like,
yeah,
muy bueno on that pool.
Yes.
Muy bueno. I know more about it than the Hedron pool.
Yeah, I think it was like 150 Hedron, 230-ish, which it's kind of stupid numbers right now. It's only been a couple days, but
yeah. Well, that's one I asked you too, is that the lockup periods and stuff. When people stake Hedron, they stake Icosa, and they mint WAATSA and all this stuff. When can they actually get liquidity for them? When, what are the periods, and what are the gotchas there?
So there are minimum stake lengths for Hedron and Icosa stakes, and they're based upon how much you're staking in relation to the total supply of the token. So the minimum is 30 days no matter what, but it could be 90, 180, 270, or 360 days. And that's your minimum time. Whatever the actual app will tell you what your minimum time will be. So you'll go in there, you'll stake. It says, hey, your minimum stake length is 180 days. So that means if you end it within that 180 days, there's a penalty. And it's linear. So like if you end at day one, 99% of your yield, 99% of your principal is poof given to other stakers. If you have 1 day remaining, you get 99% of everything. So it's just a linear scale. After that minimum stake length is up, you don't have to end your stake. It can go forever, right? Like there's no end. Unlike like Hex has, you define how long your stake's going to be. Yeah, you don't do that in Icosa. You just let it go for as long as you want it to go. The only like weird little thing that's different here is that with Icosa, you can add to your stake and Hedron, right? So if you want to add to your Hedron or Icosa stake, you can add more coins to it and make your stake bigger and get more yield on the following days. And that will reset your minimum when you do that. So, so like when we've seen like the past 3 days, there's people who are adding every single day, because they're going at this from a long-term mindset, right? Where they're like, I'm probably going to stake for a couple of years anyway, so it doesn't matter if I reset this.
Why would you stake for a couple of years? Like, what are the benefits to leaving in, going way past the minimum? Do you need to get the value that you put in out, especially for WAATSA? Do you need to be in 6 months or a year?
Well, we won't know that for WAATSA for a while, right? Because like right now, I think WAATSA's like looking at paying out by like 170-ish days in, but that can change, right? More people are constantly joining it. The payouts are going down globally because it's getting split across more people. So that could take longer for there actually to be a one-to-one repayment. But staking longer in terms of like the Icosa and Hedron staking is beneficial because that system uses the HEX share rate, right? So you stake one day and your points are derived from the share rate. So if the share rate goes up on the next day, you're technically getting a little less points for how much Icosa you're staking, right? So every day it takes a little bit more Icosa to get the same amount of points. It borrows that system from HEX, and it uses the share rate from HEX specifically so that Icosa's like price ceiling is roughly the cost of making a 5555 HEX stake per T share. And that, like we talked earlier with the arbitrage and stuff, because it helps enforce that.
What is that ceiling today?
Pretty much whatever that goes to price is. Let me look at what we're at.
There's always something the market is pricing in then?
Yeah, there's a handful of people that I watch on this that are literally constantly sitting there. So we're at about $1.20 on Icosa, and where's HEX at? HEX is at 4 cents. So I had to actually do the math. There's someone watching this right now who knows exactly that number, who's constantly watching it, I'm sure. But that seems about right to me.
Yeah, there's some good people. Giffer Ware is one who knows, who's been talking a lot about it too. Is there, so maybe that's one question people have too, in general, about price ceilings and things with Icosa like that. So you mean we're not getting a 10,000x out of Icosa?
Well, not if HEX doesn't. It's like it is a derivative of HEX, and it moves with HEX. The same with Hedron, right? Like if HEX tomorrow died and went to zero, right? Well, where's all the utility for Hedron? It's gone, right? Hedron would have no value, and by default, Icosa would have no value. So the difference is that time's also a factor. So we're not locked to the HEX price per se all the time. It's just that is the point at which you could theoretically make an HSI and sell it and get a better deal than the market. So what the other thing to consider is that it's based on the share rate too, right? So let's say HEX stayed $1 forever, right? Well, Icosa wouldn't stay $1 forever. It would slightly go up because that share rate's still increasing, and your those HSIs are getting a little bit less Icosa every time. So their value is worth a little bit less Icosa coins just because of the share rate alone. So if HEX was stagnant for 10 years, Icosa would slowly have a higher ceiling over time, regardless of HEX price.
So the most profitable play for Icosa is just staking it to get more of it, not necessarily the price to go, astronomical.
Yeah, at this point, that seems to be what people's mindset is. When there's more supply, that might be different, because we could have volatility at some point. It's just right now with so few tokens actually being liquid, there's not a lot of reason to have volatility. Like as soon as there is volatility, someone just buys it up because it doesn't take a whole lot to do it.
Well, if most people are staking though, wouldn't the volatility go in the up direction where more people will be wanting to buy it, but there's not enough for sale, not enough liquidity?
Well,
you see that?
Well, because you have two ways of buying it essentially, right? You can buy it with an HSI, or you can buy it on market. And if market's more expensive than doing the HSI way, then people tend to do the HSI, which ends up being like a Hedron bullish thing because those all get liquidated, right? So
right, it all makes sense. I like it. A couple more questions. I know you're tired, man. Let's get to a couple more here before we wrap up. Is there a benefit to holding liquid Cosa other than a small amount to re-up your stake to decrease minimum token stake leak if possible?
The only reason I know and that someone is using it for right now is those arbitrage things. So like there's some people that hold a little bit of liquid Icosa, and some of them liquidity provide with it, of course, which they earn fees from. Which, if a system where we know we're going to be pretty much bound by these limits of HEX, like maybe that's good for liquidity providing because you roughly know what range the coin can express short term. So liquidity providing is one thing you could do, but I would do some research on it if you've never done it before, because you can absolutely lose all your money doing that.
Yep. There are some risks there.
Yes, for sure. And
you'll be on the other side of the token that you don't want.
Yes. It's like, unless you're providing liquidity on two tokens that you equally want, like generally speaking, it can go poorly for you. So make sure you know what you're doing. The other thing would be just taking advantage of pumps that go above that thing. Like one of the person who's doing that is, they're selling HSIs in advance to a degree, right? So they don't have to like make the HSI and dump it immediately. They don't have to go through the whole process. They can just have some liquid Icosa on hand to do the ARB in advance. So that's the thing that's happening too. But really, like the real utility right now for Icosa is staking it and getting yield in both coins.
It's a beautiful system, man. We got all right. We're gonna wrap up though. We got one more question from the chat. What if a huge share rate increases in one day? What kind of opportunities arise?
So if the share rate goes up a bunch, there would be the ability for you basically see an instant ceiling uptick on Icosa, right? Which would mean the price now has more room to go higher because of that. So if that happens, like maybe there's some trading thing you can do that benefits you. I have to be careful what I say because this is my token, but
yeah. Yes, yeah, I totally understand. I did want to ask you about team and MAXI though, and perpetuals and things like that. Could you do you know a little bit about how they work, like enough to maybe compare Hedron with them, the Hedron ecosystem with that and what they're trying to do?
Yeah. So MAXI's all about you can kind of put this in two things, or really three. So Hedron and Icosa are derivatives, right? Particularly, they're both derivatives of shares directly. So and when I say shares, I mean literally like T shares as we know them. T shares, B shares, M shares, like they're derivatives of that. MAXI and the perpetual systems that they're building are literal shares of stakes, right? They're saying there's like it's a percentage ownership of a stake that will end at some point. So they kind of all fulfill different roles. Whereas like Hedron's more of like, this is, like I said, this is a representation of a share that existed at one point in time. And Icosa is representative of the cost of making a new stake, like the cost of a share. The MAXI system is really just about like democratizing and selling shares of stakes. And I think those three derivatives of HEX all complement each other very well. They all kind of fit their own little niche markets, and they all bring in new people, which is like the craziest thing to me. There's quite a bit of people in Hedron that are not in HEX at all, and those people are staking Hedron and Icosa right now. So just having more tokens and more exposure is good for the whole ecosystem.
Well, that's a great segue to something I want to close on. A question that I've been thinking about some recently too, about talked to Dixon Piper about how new coins split buying power around the community and the trade-offs for that kind of thing. Do you think new coins, airdrops, do you think they do more good for the ecosystem, and or do they suppress price performance of the blue chips like HEX, PulseX, and what would you say for people who are going to go out and create a new coin? Like any advice for like, should it have utility? Should it have onboarding? Should it have positive feedback loop? And if it doesn't have any of those things, maybe you think like what is your advice and thoughts on that?
This is a really complicated topic because we're talking about human beings, right? The reality is there's a whole class of people who scour the crypto universe looking for new things to just get into, ride a pump and get out, right? And those may not necessarily be the people you want in HEX, but those are people that is exposure regardless. And maybe some stick around and maybe don't. Maybe some tell their friends and family, and then their friends and family stick around. Who knows? Who knows how that happens? Anything new that gets released on chain generally has a little bit of an explosive thing going around for a little bit, and people get into it that are not from that ecosystem that's connected to. So getting some of those people into it and understanding it, like that's a benefit. Hedron and MAXI and Icosa make sure that they're all doing things that, hey, we know that this may leech some users, right? This may leech some financial capital, because you can't create a new market and not have money flow into it, right? Like it's not impossible to like restrict it. Yeah. So it's inevitable that if you make some new thing, some money might flow from the thing you're building on into it. I think to handle that responsibly, having things that build on it that help maintain a positive relationship are important. It's not necessarily, but it's a nice to have. And at the very minimum, you should probably have a liquidity pair against that thing.
Or the OA will nudge you on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's just that we're at a time now, funny enough, in the bear market where we see like a new coin every week or so, and some of them are just memes, which can be used for onboarding. Some of them don't do anything, and some of them are positive feedback loops for HEX. And it just I know there's a lot of people who may be thinking of creating one and stuff too. And I don't know. I think I like HEX. I like the blue chips from Richard Hart, and I like anything that helps that and helps it long term. So that's what I would optimize for. But yeah, like you said, there's everyone's got their own thing going on, and what they optimize for and what they want to do, and they're a time frame, and humans as you mentioned, complex human beings.
The thing to really avoid, and this is unavoidable in general, but the thing that I watch for is I look for things that just steal, right? Like we really want to, and I think having like Pulse Police is a really good resource for this. There will be things that come out in the ecosystem, either targeting people that are in HEX or in Pulse, or things that say they're going to build on PulseChain or whatever, and they're going to run sacrifices. A lot of these will still value. A lot of these are either not going to exist, or a lot of them are intentionally designed to steal value, and a lot of them will accidentally do that because they were done poorly and they just die, right? Like if someone comes out with a new meme coin and it turns out it has an infinite inflation bug and people put millions of dollars in it and then it goes to zero, somebody stole the value. So having things like Pulse Police where someone wants to do something, it's an airdrop, it's something, and as a community we just kind of make a habit of going to these places and saying, hey, is this code legit? Because a lot of people don't know how to read code, but if you can but we do have a lot of people in the community who do. So if you can go to Pulse Police and they'll say, hey, it's all good, or maybe it's got a couple red flags, but it's not that bad, or maybe it's absolutely horrible. Like, they're not going to tell you that the founders aren't going to do something horrible because that's outside of control, but they can at least tell you what the code does, what it's capable of doing, and what people should look out for. And as long as we can maintain that, I think we are in a better position than most.
How can people get a hold of Pulse Police if they want to know something about a contract?
It's t.me/Pulse Police, I believe. I'll double check real quick.
Just want to put that resource out there for people.
Yeah. So like, just so you guys know, it's not a chat to talk about coins or tokenomics or anything like that. It's just saying, hey, there's this new coin that came out. Here's the code, because like if the code's not out, they can't look at it. And you just want to know, is the code safe? What red flags does the code have? It's that kind of channel. Don't go in there asking if the founder's going to steal all your money, because they're not going to know.
Tell me where my coins are. Yeah. I've written a couple posts too, just on did a bunch of research on the security side that I'm just sharing as well for people who are interested in it. About free claims, how to be careful, what to look for, some no code stuff, some like you gotta be a dev or know something about computers to understand how to look for different types of scams. But man, that one keeps getting all the Twitter, that stupid Uniswap front end runner bot thing. Jeez, that is everywhere. Cannot get rid of it. It's just and actually very clever. So on the malicious smart contract post, I go into it, but basically it looks like a developer wrote it. It looks totally legit. They speak perfect English. It's, they're like, okay, we're going to make this bot. They use Remix to go make this code. They tell you where to copy and paste, blah, blah, blah. And then the ringer is at like halfway through. They're like, all right, now we need to fund the contract. The more ETH you put in, the more you'll get back out. And then, but it looks legit. It's very subtle. It's the most subtle way of saying 2 for 1 type or 1 for 2 type of thing.
Yeah. And, one of the crazy things I've seen going around right now is it's like, USDC is an ERC 777, I think is what it is, which is a modification of ERC 20. And it allows you to bundle the approval into the transfer, right? So it's not two transactions. So you'll know if you use USDC on Uniswap, it'll tell you to sign a message first, then do the transfer. Well, so the reality is that there's now like malicious dApps that they're not trying to get you to do a bad approval, not trying to get you to sign some stupid transaction. They just want you to sign the message, right? And a lot of us aren't as conscious about signing messages. A lot of us are not like thinking that that's a bad thing. So like imagine going to like a hacked OpenSea front end and it's like sign a message, because OpenSea makes you sign a message that you agree to their terms when you sign in, and it just happens that message is actually a doctored USDC approval, and you don't know it. And now your USDC is drained because they have the message. They just have to pair it with a transfer function, and it's game over.
That's a good one. I'm not sure if I actually covered that in the 2 blogs or not, but that's a good one. I like to. So signing messages. So be careful signing messages. So to protect yourself, what you look on Etherscan for the legit contract address, compare it with the one that that's prompted to make sure you're signing a message from the legit contract. That's the protection there.
Yeah.
That nobody's probably going to do, but that's how you solve it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, the scammers are crafty, and they're getting better, and so it's really on us probably as a community to really be more on top of it. And I try to do it all the time, but it's like Telegram does nothing, right? You block and report people. They occasionally ban accounts, but they do not ban rooms. There's tons of fake HEX rooms, fake Hedron rooms, fake Icosa rooms, and they don't take them down.
YouTube, Twitter. I mean, every day on YouTube comments, I have to go through myself, I don't even report half the time because I'm like, I do 3 clicks to report. They still come back. I can just do 1 click to hide user from channel. And then, it's just as good because they don't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Rapid fire questions, and we got to take off. Will it be open source Icosa front end made available?
Potentially. So at the very least, I will put the page logic for Beautify available. So I have to check, like, because I'm using libraries and I'm not sure I'm like in the license terms allowed to actually open source all of them. So at the very least, I can open source the parts I wrote, which would be the core of it anyways. Just may not look as pretty.
Gotcha.
So that's some thought for me.
Gotcha. Are you gonna be at PulseCon?
I will be there. Yes.
Yes. I will hopefully see you there. I'll be there as well.
Okay. Yeah, we will have a Icosa Hedron booth. So
I will definitely see you there because I will go there. And if you want any free Richard Hart swag, I've got some T-shirts and stuff. Maybe.
We'll have some swag too. So
okay, maybe we can trade some swag.
I've got some really funny T-shirts. So
nice.
I've been holding them back, so they'll be funny.
Your 30-second thoughts on CowSwap, and that is the last
it's cool. It's cool. I like that. I like the things it does. It can't, it doesn't always work in your favor, but when it does, it's awesome.
Beautiful, man. This has been a fantastic conversation. There's so many questions I want to get to too about Tornado Cash and all these things. Can you come back on again sometime? Maybe not for a few weeks, but like come back on and we go into some different areas more than Icosa. Of course, we'll talk about.
Yeah, sure. Because like everyone wants to hear Hedron Icosa stuff, but like I'm plugged into the space, so I see all the other craziness that's going on in other places, and
he's not a one-dimensional person. Okay, he has more to offer.
I am not just a coding robot. Well, it seems like it sometimes.
Super intelligent person. So glad to meet you, and can't wait to see you in Vegas. Thank you for what you do for the community. I really think you don't. I know you're hot right now because of the launch and all this stuff. I hope it never goes away. I want you always to be celebrated as someone who has built something so magnificent for the community that you should be rewarded forever. Like you deserve to be rewarded forever for the stuff you're building. So
I appreciate it. Yeah. Well, my hope is just that it all does good things and it's all successful, and I throw a bunch of effort into making sure that everything goes well. So
I meant to post this one. Alex is not AI. Well, I don't know. Maybe he's very advanced AI. Maybe that's AI.
Elon Musk was right.
He is right. Well, Richard disagrees with him about brain uploading, but maybe he's those Tesla cars. Like those Tesla cars.
Those cars are good. Brain uploading won't be. I mean, it'll probably be a thing. I don't know if you're ever going to want to do it, but it'll probably be a thing.
When he talks about 4chan and brain uploading, I know that's the accentuated type of attacks that can happen, but I don't know if I want to do that either. I want to. It'd be nice to live forever, but hopefully you can do that through medical research on longevity.
Yeah, I would much prefer the human live forever versus like I live forever in a metaverse brain capsule thing.
Yeah. Next time maybe we'll get into that one.
All
What's
right,
up,
sounds
Alexkins?
good.
I like it, Alexkins. We don't even have Richardkins. Richardkins. We have Alexkins. Alex, damn it. Never mind. Ending on that. Thank you, everyone. Chat, you're amazing. You actually shared and tweeted like I suggested earlier. Appreciate it. If you have not subbed, hit that button, por favor. And then smash all the other buttons if you want to. Go follow Alex. More than anything, go follow him. He has a crazy hard to spell or say Twitter handle. It's Synergy, but it's a very fun way to say it.
Maybe I need a new one.
I mean, I like it, but every time I try to at you, I'm like, I can't do at ALA. No, it's like send something. Okay, Synergy, and then I do it. Okay, it pops up. But anyways, Google, you'll find his Twitter if you want it. Alex McWhirter on there. Do you have YouTube?
No, there is the Hedron. It's just the Hedron channel. Literally just search Hedron's first one. But
Okay.
I'm probably gonna actually change that to like an Alex channel and then just start doing general stuff because
Gotcha.
yeah.
That sounds fun. Okay. Well, when you have YouTube, everyone needs to follow you. I'll be one of your first ups for sure.
All right.
Follow me at RHMaximus, just the way it sounds. If you're listening, at RHMaximus. This was you tied off the weekend. You tied off the week with excellent content. I know a lot of people are happy about this interview. It seems like from I'm going to get off here. I'm going to look at the Twitter space. I'm sure it's blowing up right now.
Yeah.
Everyone, tomorrow. Let's see. Tomorrow. Yeah, I think tomorrow. There's going to be 100% uptime. It's a new stream I'm doing. Same channel, everything like that. Still RHMax, but I'm basically trying to find a time on the weekends when nobody else is streaming and have a surprise guest on and just basically do an AMA style type thing. So the time is fluid, but yeah, I'm about you on for 100% uptime sometime too. But the first one will be tomorrow. So everyone look out for an invite for that. Don't know what time yet. I'm going to have to check PulseTube/live for the times of what's going on to make sure we get maximum number of people, maximum uptime. That should be fun. So I got a pretty cool guest for tomorrow as well. Alex, get some rest, man. Thank you for 2 hours of your precious time and brain power. I hope you. I think you need to just rest up this weekend, right? Like you 2 streams in a row, and it's like 4-hour streams or so.
Yeah, but it's all good. Icosa's launched, so that's a workload off a little bit. So still work to do. But
I agree. Well,
I appreciate it.
Have an excellent weekend. Again, we'll try to have you on another time to go into other topics as well. You're a man of many talents, and we definitely want to we want to explore that as well. Because it's been excellent talking to you. Everyone, have an excellent weekend. Come back on tomorrow. Share the stream if you like, and we are out.